What's going on, guys? It's your boy, the DMD. It's time for the showdown of the Shaddolls. While this deck has been pushed out of meta contention over the last several months, Winda gives Shaddolls a fresh spot in the meta against Drytrons and Virtual World. While testing different variants of this deck, I have found Pure to be the most enjoyable. While the Invoked Dogmatica Shaddoll deck looks really fun, it would involve me reading my opponent's cards, using my brain, and determining how to interact with them, which is pretty unfun. So, as a result, I'm on Winda Turbo for this iteration. For the deck list, to keep it simple, we are on 3 Mathematician, 1 copy of Armageddon Knight, 3 copies of Reshaddoll Windy, 1 Kaios, 1 copy of Dragon, 2 copies of Shaddoll Beast. We are on 3 copies of Shaddoll Squamata, 2 copies of Shaddoll Hedgehog, 2 copies of Shaddoll Aerial, 1 copy of Edgemp Sabers, 1 copy of Trick Clown. Moving on to the spells, we are on triple copies of Pot of Desires, triple copies of regular Shaddoll Fusion, and the triple L Shaddoll Fusion. Then, of course, we are on 1 copy of Fusion Recycling Plant to search out polymerization. We are on 2 copies of polymerization, 3 copies of Fright for Patchwork because this card is a +1 and it's really busted. We are on 2 copies of Shaddoll Wreck, aka Shaddoll Schism, and 1 copy of Reshaddoll Incarnation. Finally, we are on 2 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison. For the extra deck, we are on 3 copies of El Shaddoll Fusion, 2 Winda, 1 Shekanaga, 2 copies of App Cologne, 1 Grista, 1 Anoia I'm gonna be real, this literally will only ever come up if there's a water deck that I can super poly. Moving on to the Link monsters, 1 Verte Anaconda, 1 Gravity Controller, 1 copy of Cross Sheet, 1 Artemis the Magistus Moon Maiden, 1 copy of Boral Sword to round off the extra deck once and for all. For the side deck, we're on triple Lancia, triple Super Poly, 2 Twin Twisters, 1 Feather Duster, and then triple Evenly Match and triple Judgment. Now hold on, amigo. I'm aware that this deck contains a few cards that might fetch a pretty penny. However, fret not, Budget Duelist. While this deck might look extravagant on paper, you will definitely be able to find prosperity with Shaddolls while spending as much or as little as your heart desires. The only necessary main deck cards not included in this structured decks are the 2 Shaddoll Schisms, the playset of Fright for Patchwork, the Fusion Recycling Plant, and the 1 copy of Edgemp Sabers. All of these, outside of Schism, are dirt cheap. While you might feel a tad unnerved at the prospect of purchasing side deck staples such as Evenly Matched and Solemn Judgment, I can offer you some relief. These cards are not entirely necessary to have when playing against the meta, just really nice to have. I would argue that Evenly Matched is somewhat mandatory given the prominence of decks like Eldritch and other back row variants. However, there are ways around it. Twin Twisters, as I mentioned, is a prominent option. Harpy's Feather Duster is a card. Cosmic Cyclone is very, very affordable. So there are options when it comes to playing this deck on a budget. While most players have played against Shaddolls, or even played Shaddolls, at least one time, I also felt it might be helpful to explain a simple combo or two that the deck utilizes for an easy Winda setup going first. While Shaddoll Fusion enables powerful plays playing from behind going second, it is imperative to know an easy 1.5 card setup to end on a guaranteed Winda and the send of a dark monster on your opponent's turn. That being said, let's dive into the 1.5 card combo now. So to perform this combo, you will need either 1 Armageddon Knight or one of your 3 copies of Mathematicians and a Fusion spell. So to start off the combo, you will normal the Mathematician or the Armageddon Knight, sending Squamata, and Squamata will send more than likely a copy of Hedgehog. because you will need another Shaddoll monster in your hand. Here it doesn't really matter too much of what you get, although I think that it would be most correct to add a copy of Beast, given that it can give you an extra draw. So that being said, we will go ahead and add the Beast. After we finish adding the Beast, we will link off the Mathematician into Artemis, and then from there we will activate Shaddoll Fusion, summoning Construct using the Artemis and the Shaddoll that we added to our hand off of Hedgehog. Construct will be chain link 1, and then we will chain the Beast from our hand as chain link 2 in order to chain block the Construct. We can draw a card and then send Schism. After we send Schism, we will link off the Construct for a Gravity Controller, triggering Construct's effect to add back the Schism, setting the Schism, and then passing turn. Essentially, this gives us a Winda on our opponent's turn, or if need be, we can summon an App Cologne using a Construct and one of the Dark Shaddolls in our graveyard, so we can send and make either a Winda or an App Cologne for a negate, depending on the attribute of monster that our opponent summons. So now, with our opponent locked under a Winda, essentially what's going to happen is that they're not going to be able to play the game, and after they pass their turn, then we can use Schism to summon an App Cologne or another Construct to facilitate even more follow-up plays. So just to give you some idea of how this deck operates, here are a few replays.
You're my heartbeat, my silent drum that is kicking me till I'm numb. I wanna feel the love that James Brown did when he got standing ovations on his gig. I wanna feel free like a bird in the sky when he opened his wings to fly on by to the beat of my silent drum that is kicking me till I'm numb. I wanna feel free like a bird in the sky when he opened his wings and fly on by to the beat of my silent drum that is kicking me till I'm numb. Oh.
Psych, no bass drop for you. I'm a kidder, it's all in good fun, guys. But yeah, that's essentially the pure Shaddoll list. I hope all of you have enjoyed it. I do think there is definitely a place for this deck inside of this current format, although obviously with Eldritch being one of the top decks, Winda may not be one of the power players that she used to be. However, the Shaddoll engine is still as recursive as it ever was with Triple Construct, and the fact that there are so many specific Shaddoll cards like Ariel that have an impact on today's metagame, being able to banish cards out of the graveyard, is still very pivotal. Pair that with trap cards like Ice Dragon's Prison, or even hand traps if you find the room somehow. I know I couldn't, but hand traps if you do have the room. And you do have a rogue contender, but still a contender for a very, very competitive rogue pick. That being said, I hope all of you have enjoyed this video today. I am not a Shaddoll god, so this is simply a variant that I came up with that I really enjoy. Obviously, I'm not playing this in real life right now because there are no events, but this is probably what I would play if there were events. I really do find this deck enjoyable, even more so than the Invoked variant, which is arguably superior, but that being said, there is still a lot of fun to be had with the pure build that I've constructed, and I do think that there is a place for Shaddolls in the metagame, like I said earlier. That being said, it's me, it's that DMD, and y'all already know your boy is in fact out.
You're my heartbeat, my silent drum.